Chris Philp's here. Good morning. Thanks
Good morning,
for joining
Kay.
us,
Good morning.
Minister. It's always great to see you. Let's start with the COVID inquiry, should we? What was your experience of Boris Johnson?
Well, I think he was trying to do the best he could in what were very difficult circumstances back in the COVID pandemic. None of us had ever seen a pandemic on that scale before. The last time it happened was the Spanish influenza epidemic, I think, in about 1918. So we were in uncharted territory, and he was trying, as far as I could see, to make the right decisions in a very difficult, fast-moving situation. Now, our overall mortality rate in the UK was about the same as the European average. But there's no doubt, of course, looking back with hindsight, you can point to things and say, well, that could have been done better or something else could have been done better.
Lockdown earlier?
Well, those are the kind of questions. And the COVID...
in your opinion?
The COVID... Well, let's just wait for the COVID inquiry to look at that. I mean...
No, don't hide behind that, Minister. What do you think?
Well, I think, like I just said, these are really difficult decisions. Even with hindsight, it's not completely clear because, I think one of the medical officers is quoted as saying at the time that if you lock down too early, you have social harm caused to children. Will the public stick with it through the peak? Those kind of questions. So even with hindsight, it's not completely clear to me what the answer is. The inquiry is obviously looking at it. But I think we should also just, it's very easy to, sort of, they call it in America, like Monday morning quarterbacking, where you sort of sit there after the event and sort of pick holes. It was really difficult. When the situation was moving very fast, it wasn't clear how the pandemic was going to evolve. And there was no hard and fast right answer. What I think the inquiry can hopefully do is give us some pointers to help us navigate any future pandemic better, if there is. I hope there won't be one, but if there is one, it'll give us some pointers.
Yeah, although it would appear that all the experts were the scientists were telling him to lock down earlier. But as you say, we'll wait and see. If he did say, let the bodies pile high, is that a comment that we should expect from a Prime Minister?
No, to be honest, no, it's not, no.
If he did say it, what do you think?
Well, if he did say it, I think it was inappropriate and wrong language, even if used in a private meeting.
OK. What sort of damage final question on this, what sort of damage might he be able to inflict on the present Prime Minister during his 2 days of evidence?
Well, he'll give his evidence and we'll see what he says. I don't think it's a question of inflicting damage. This inquiry should be about sort of dispassionately and forensically understanding what lessons can be learned. But as I say, the mortality rate in the UK was about the same as the European average, but I'm sure there are things we could have done better. We need to learn those lessons. OK, those
are the pictures of the former Prime Minister just arriving at the COVID inquiry 3 hours early.
Goodness me. It's the first time Boris has ever been early for anything.
Yeah, I set him up, you knock him down, Minister. Talk to me about the treaty that was signed yesterday. Do you agree with Robert Jenrick, who sat just where you are yesterday, that the Rwanda flights will go before the next election?
Yes, I do. The intention, which I think we will deliver, is to get those flights off by spring. The treaty deals with the concerns that were expressed in the Supreme Court judgment. Now, the government disagrees with that judgment, but we obviously respect it. And the treaty sets out in a legally binding form the commitments that we need to address those Supreme Court issues, particularly around this issue of, they call it refoulement. This is where somebody might get sent to Rwanda and then get sent off.
Everybody knows what it means.
Everyone knows. Yeah. No one did 6 months ago, but everyone does now.
Like furlough.
Where they may get sent somewhere else that's unsafe. This new treaty categorically sets out in legally binding form that will not happen, addressing the Supreme Court's concerns. And then there's going to be a bill which makes sure this whole thing is legally watertight and can't be unpicked by the courts. And that bill will, it hasn't been finalised yet, and it'll be brought forward relatively soon.
When?
But it'll make sure, relatively soon.
This week?
But it'll, I don't have a precise timetable, but it will be soon. And it'll make sure the courts don't unpick this, because Parliament has expressed its will very clearly. Parliament is sovereign, it's elected by the public, and the bill will make sure that this is legally watertight and gets delivered.
What happens if we send someone to Rwanda and they commit a crime? Do they come back to the UK?
So there's a provision in the treaty which respects items in Rwandan law that if they are convicted of a serious offence, after they've served their sentence, a small number might be eligible to return to the UK. But, to be clear, those are all people that would have been in the UK anyway, because by definition they've come to the UK, then we've sent them to Rwanda. So it'd be people that, absent this deal, would have been here anyway.
What happens when they come back to the UK?
Well, we will then look at whether we can return them safely to their country of origin, for example, which we do with anyone who's not conducive to the public good under the 1971 Immigration Act.
OK, but you don't want to tell me when this legislation is going to find itself in front of Parliament, even though you keep telling us it's an emergency legislation.
Yeah, well, it's being finalised at the moment, and it will be pretty soon.
This week?
I think we're talking about days, not weeks. But I don't want to be more precise than that because it's still being finalised.
OK. Why is this government so wedded to sending people to Rwanda? It's costing us a fortune, the taxpayer, and it's a relatively small number of people. Labour yesterday was saying it was symbolism.
No, that's complete nonsense. So first of all, like what Labour said, so first of all, it's uncapped. There is not a numerical limitation. Secondly, it is a great deal cheaper than accommodating people in the UK. We're currently spending about £4 billion a year accommodating illegal immigrants, illegal arrivals in hotels. The Rwanda arrangement is a great deal cheaper than that. But actually, the most important point.
But hang on.
So it's uncapped. The number is uncapped.
So how many?
But the really important point is the deterrent effect. Now, let me give you an example because I'm not making this up. So Australia had a similar problem to this about 10 years ago. They had about 50,000 illegal maritime arrivals, as they called them, coming in. And they started sending people to an offshore location. And I think they only moved a few thousand over there. And it had a deterrent effect and stopped the arrivals completely. So the reason for doing this, Kay, is the deterrent effect.
OK, let me put this to you then, Minister. Do you think that a mother with 2 small children, on a plastic dinghy, heading out over the channel, not knowing whether they're going to live or die, will be worried about whether you're going to send them to Rwanda?
Well, yes, all the evidence is the deterrent effect works. It worked in Australia with their Operation Sovereign Borders. It's also actually worked here with a returns agreement we have with Albania. Now, last year,
that's different.
I think over 10,000 Albanians crossed the English Channel. Now, with this returns agreement, that's gone to almost zero because of the deterrent effect. I would also say no one should be leaving France to come here because France is a safe country. There is no war going on in France. No one needs to leave France to come to the UK.
We can go round the houses on that one. You know what the argument is as far as that is concerned, Minister, but we're also almost out of time. So I want to ask you about what is going on with Hamas, Israel, Gaza. We believe that the Prime Minister spoke to Netanyahu and underlined that Israel needs to take greater care to protect civilians in Gaza.
That's right. I mean, that's a point that we've been making, we, the UK government and the American government, have been making consistently over the last few weeks. Of course, we respect Israel's right to defend itself against the appalling terrorist attack where 1,400 innocent Israeli women, children, men, civilians were brutally murdered and raped as well, and kidnapped. Of course, Israel should be able to defend themselves against those terrorist atrocities, but they should also do it in conformity with international law and take great care to protect civilians in Gaza. That is very important as well.
OK. We are out of time. Will you indulge me with one more question, please, Minister? Thank you. Reports this morning that the UK will not be sharing information gained during reconnaissance flights.
Yes.
Why?
Well, it'll share information in relation to rescuing and identifying hostages, but nothing else.
Even if there is evidence that the International Criminal Court should see?
Well, I think the International Criminal Court doesn't have jurisdiction because Israel is not a signatory to the relevant treaty. I think there were concerns that we would be sort of directly assisting Israeli military operations, and that is not the case.
But if there is evidence of a war crime being committed, we will not share that information.
I don't think I said that. I think the concern that we were trying to address in our comments and the Defence Secretary's comments yesterday is that these flights are not assisting Israeli military operations. That's the point the Defence Secretary was making.
OK, I must leave it there, but it's good to see you. Thank you for indulging me with an extra question. Thanks very much.